Hello. Today on our podcast, we are going to be talking about how to take care of yourself when you are taking care of others. If you are like everyone else in the world, you've probably felt overwhelmed by all the things telling you how to practice self care. And many of them involve having a whole lot of time and energy that you likely do not feel like you have. So, I can say I've played around in the world of self-care, going to yoga classes and meditating and taking time for myself, doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do. And at times they still felt overwhelming. They sometimes even felt like, gosh, this is more work. Do I even have the energy to be able to do this? And sometimes they felt amazing. But I really had to kind of dig in and learn a little bit about myself and get curious to find like what really was self-care to me and how could I integrate that into my life in my own way, aside from all the things that other people were telling me to do.
Yeah, I have to say, like when it first came to doing self-care, even learning that you actually need it, right? It was a challenge for me because there was a very unconscious part of my identity that really just thought that it was the thing you were supposed to be able to do is do all of the things for everybody without needing anything for yourself, and then end up ultimately getting resentful. I remember the first time when I was like, maybe some of the reasons why I am stressed and unhappy and snapping at people could be because I don't do anything for myself. Was I may have mentioned this before. I was doing in the earlier podcast, I was working full time as a doctor. I had just had my second baby. I was back in the office, and a pharmaceutical rep came in and was like, "What do you do for fun?" And I was like, what part of I have a newborn and I run a practice did you just not hear? And I went home and I still remember laying on the hammock outside trying to journal on my day off. Like, what do I like to do? Like, what are my hobbies? And I had no idea what I liked to do or how to do it. And then when I actively started to try to do self care, I fully 100% believed that nobody understood my life. Nobody understood it. And there was no way any of this was ever going to fit in my life. All of the big self care things, right? Like, you do not understand my life. And therefore, it was hard to try, right? Because everything felt so overwhelmingly large. I was taking care of babies. I'm still taking care of a lot of things. And self-care is what prevents me from screaming every day.
Yeah, it's so important, but I feel like sometimes it feels like it's like shoved down our faces. You should do this, but like how?
Yeah.
How? And I think the first time I got a little taste of like, okay, actually this is what it could look like was I don't remember what the book was called, but like Small Great Things or something like that of like
Mhm.
how the little things that we do in a day do make up our life and do make a really huge difference. And then another part that really helped me kind of pull things together for myself was learning about ultradian rhythm breaks. So much of what we're told is kind of put in our face of like, you should have this great morning routine and you should wake up at with the sun at 5 a.m. or earlier, and you get in a full day's work before everybody else is even awake. And you do these 20 things, maybe not, but it felt like it at a time, um, as your self care. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes when I tried that, I'd be wiped out by the time I was done and
Yeah.
not with more capacity, which is the whole point to fulfill my day. So learning about ultradian rhythm breaks is a study was actually done by the military trying to figure out like how long can we actually be on and productive for and when do we need break, rest, chill time. And Not that you have to like live to these numbers, but they found that like on average, people could be productive for about 90 minutes and then need like a 20-minute break. And whether that be rest or a pause, it can be even like mindless activities, they say, where you're like sorting things or reading a book or whatever. Um, that flow has just really worked with my life a lot more of sneaking in little moments
Mhm.
of self-care and things that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, like it's great at times to go and leave and go do my own thing. That does take hours or so. Um, but it's just not feasible or even it just isn't accessible or feels good trying to do that all the time. So fitting in little moments. Um,
And that was a game changer for me without knowing about that research and those studies at all, was actually starting to recognize what little things were self-care. And I mean, and I know we're going to talk about this when we give the assignment at the end of the day, but for me, even more than recognizing that I should have it is writing it down ahead of time, because when I'm in that like getting flustered moment, I can't think of one thing that's going to feel good
exactly.
at all. I'm like, there is nothing. And then I get to look at the list that I've already created and been like, oh yeah, drinking my coffee while it's hot actually feels like self-care. And I've labeled it as self-care as much. So when I look at them, like, this actually also in my head stands for a self-care thing. Because if you're a parent, you know that iced coffee may be what you drink unintentionally all of the time because you've left it around. Or playing solitaire on my phone actually doesn't have to be checking out. It can be self-care for 5 minutes because my brain needs a break. And writing the list down for me was always was also game changing, because otherwise I wasn't even recognizing things as being self-care. And in it, when I need it the most, it was really hard for me to access.
100%. Yeah, because when you get time, I think a lot of us can relate to this is do you ever get time and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got this chunk of time. What should I do? And it's like, should I do the laundry? Should I finish this work? Should I have some time for me? But what do I even want to do? And I end up sometimes doing some of the work because if I don't have a list or know, like, hey, these are some things I could do, um, yeah, that's what I default to. So, or sometimes I do nothing. All that time goes by, and the whole time I just thought about what what should I do
Yeah.
with this time?
Well, this will forever be one of my works in progress, is reminding myself that I get to take care of myself. So I always love when we talk about topics that I'm like, oh yeah, I get to remember that, because I teach it, I preach it, and I have a tendency to forget because I take care of people, right? So that's what doctors do. We're healers, we take care of people. And at the end of the day, when I want to bite the head off of the people that I love the most, it's always a good time for me to look at myself and be like, maybe it's not their fault.
Right? I like to a list sometimes knowing that when I'm like stuck and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling, cranky and I'm not myself and taking it out on everyone in my house. It sometimes is like I need to get back to my self-care. And sometimes it's like, oh, there's a shift in seasons. And also like maybe I get to look at some new things. Maybe these things aren't serving me anymore or not, or whatnot. A friend had told me once, again, I don't know which book she read, but she made a list. She's like, I don't even know what I like to do for fun. So
Mhm.
she made a list and made herself try these things and then write down um, whether she liked them or not, and whether she would try them again or not, to start to find what she liked to do. So I thought,
I love that. I mean, we talked about getting curious just a couple episodes ago, and that is something that, get curious. What do I like? And if I don't know, well, I guess I get to try things and be willing to be curious about what would be fun and be different, because I have learned that I like a lot of things that I didn't I never allowed myself the opportunity to do. So self-care is so important, and it's not all pedicures, massages, and all of the like, it does not have to be expensive for the people that are listening or like who has the money for that. It really can be drinking that hot cup of coffee or calling a friend, chatting on the phone, taking a nap, getting curious.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think that's such an important piece, and that's that piece of getting curious of like what we've told should be self-care
Mhm.
versus like what really feels good. Um, this morning, I had some time to myself. My husband and my kids are gone, and I had a yoga class this morning, and it actually felt really good to just sleep in and have the house to myself in the morning to myself rather than and do, do some stretching and do some movement in my body on my own rather than go to that group class. And on the flip
Mm.
side, sometimes it's like, no, it's going to feel best for me to get out and connect with those people and go do that. So I think just, yeah, like rewriting and just knowing that it can be these little snippets
Mhm.
that could be, picking flowers, looking at flowers, getting outside for a little bit, just like 3 breaths. It can be that simple and playing around with it. And don't worry about the fact if something that somebody told you, like, hey, this is great self-care. If you're like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel like great self-care to me.
Think one of the ways to determine if it's good self-care for you is, does it feel good while you're doing it? While you're doing it. And it could be different every day. Some days I love to take a walk. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. Right now, it would not be self-care, it would be torture. It's like 100 zillion degrees outside. So that isn't going to be, it's not always the option and the choice. Like, does it feel good when I'm doing it? That way, you're not going to get away with saying doing the laundry was self-care. Because I don't know. You're never going to convince me that doing the laundry is self-care. It's a chore.
Right. And different for all of us. I have a friend who told me, hey, today folding laundry and watching a show felt so amazing to me.
There you go. That's
But
why we're all
yeah,
individuals.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Um, just one little add-on here is I feel like just, and maybe this is me, but with the self-care stuff, sometimes I can get stuck in that self-help cycle and feeling
Mhm.
like, did I do enough? And what did I do today? And I think it comes down to um, at the end of the day, it can be really awesome. We're not really good at celebrating ourselves and like thinking about what we did get done, right? Always what's running through our mind naturally is what we didn't do, what didn't get done. But if we can be like, okay, what am I celebrating today? I got to drink my coffee while it was warm, or I, sat down for 3 minutes. It was glorious. Or I got to connect with a friend and just thinking about like, hey, if you start looking back and thinking like, what is one thing that felt really good today, can just really help you see that those small things do make a difference. Um, yeah. Any last thoughts before we wrap up and give them their action step?
No, I agree with that so much. Looking for reasons to celebrate yourself, celebrate life, helps you see more of the good. I mean, it's always been a thing, from when we work together. I always start my calls with a celebration for the week because we spend so much time in our life problem solving and looking at the hard stuff and all of those things are like conscientiously deciding like that can actually maybe even be part of your self-care is celebrating yourself because it feels good to actually accomplish things. So I love that. And, I think for your action step for this week, because as we said, information is not transformation, and we want you to focus on this topic and take something away from it, is for you to make a list of some little things that you enjoy and get curious and go back to it. Don't just do it one time, go back to it, every day for 5 or 10 minutes, a list of things. And I am going to encourage you to put it someplace where you can see it, be it I always recommend the refrigerator because I feel like people are in their kitchen a lot, but it is 2023, so it can be a list on your phone or someplace where you're going to see it so that you are thinking self-care. How can I take care of myself right now? The other people that you need to take care of, they won't let you forget. It'll be okay, but you get to take care of yourself as well.
Absolutely. We'll be doing this right along with you. And know that that's an evergreen document. That means you get to cross stuff out and add stuff however you see fit.
Yes.
So, yeah, enjoy getting curious about what you enjoy, what feels like self care to you. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Take care.